Hello, friends. Welcome back to Trending. Today is Thursday, August 15th, about 9:45 as we're recording. Good morning, Joe.
Good morning. How's it going?
Good. You don't have a hat or a wig or
I
anything
know,
on today,
man.
so.
We're all talk on that one.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks to those of you joining us today. We haven't done this in a while. If you're relatively new, we try to take something in the headlines in the culture world and something that's trending on social or in the news and kind of take a faith spin at it and see what we can learn, see if there's anything in the Bible that we can apply to this. And so we had a couple of different options for today, but there's one thing that I feel like we can't not talk about.
Yeah, like people would, question our authenticity if we avoided this topic.
Yes. I looked, and this was by far the number one search. Over the past 7 days, this is by far the most searched topic on Google and Twitter and everything.
Which is saying a lot.
I think it's some 5 million, some searches over the past few days. Everyone's talking, even though the Olympics are now over,
yes,
everyone's still talking about breaking or breakdancing, breaking.
Yes.
And more specifically, the Australian breakdancer Raygun. Rachel Gunn is her name.
Yes.
And she goes by Raygun. And so she kind of took over the internet. I'm sure by now people have seen clips of her. She did not win any match, and she did not score a single point in her time in the Olympics for breaking. She kind of grew to popularity because her moves are very unique.
Yes.
She does a lot of things that no one else in the competition were doing.
That's right.
To put it mildly
and very charitably.
Yes. We shared a couple memes and reels and stuff that we've seen this morning. She's just everywhere, and she just kind of blew up because she was so different. So there's a lot we could talk about here, Joe. We did a little bit. I didn't really know a whole lot about her until this morning, as we figured out we would probably talk about this. We did some research. She's 36. She's a college professor.
Yes.
She's got her doctorate.
Yes.
In breakdancing and how it relates to cultural impact. And so she's clearly extremely intelligent.
Yes.
And despite what you may have seen online, she's a very accomplished break artist. What do you call breakdance? What's the official? I don't know.
I mean, B-girl, like
B-girl.
B-boy?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
She's won multiple world championships. She's clearly one of the best in Australia. And even it's kind of easy to clown on her because the videos look so ridiculous. But honestly, even the moves that look so ridiculous to us, I don't know if I could do them. Like the spinning around on the ground and landing and doing crazy things with your hands. And I don't think I could do even what looks bad to us. I'm not even sure if I could do what looks bad.
Right.
It's a hard sport.
It is.
We could cover a lot of ground here. So as you and I are both learning more about Rachel Raygun,
yeah,
the kind of how it's just kind of taken over the world, taken over the internet.
Yes.
Where should we start, Joe? What's first on your mind as we talk about Raygun?
I mean, there's a lot we could say here. This could be the shortest trending video or the longest one. So you pick. It's a user's delight here.
Yes.
So on the one hand, there is what I saw that was interesting was kind of a call for justice on this matter, because some people are like, how in the world did she qualify for the Olympics? It looks like she was clowning around, not taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
Maybe not putting her country and Oceania in a great light. And so, what were the things in place that allowed her to get this far? And so there's all the people try to fill in with did she do this on purpose? Is this something that she had a point to make? So she threw it intentionally for whatever reason, or maybe the regional qualifier that she won in order to get into the Olympics, maybe it was skewed in her direction. And so I think this is kind of a sociological phenomenon when there's a lot of unanswered things with those vacuums, or we fill them in, and sometimes we fill them with outlandish things, things that don't make sense in the long run, with logic ruling the day, but in the moment they might. And so there was this call for justice. There was this petition that ultimately led her to getting picked on unnecessarily. So I do feel sorry for her for that. She seems like a really nice lady, but there is this call for justice when something is awry. There is a call for justice. And this is actually in N.T. Wright's work on Christianity as a human phenomenon. This is one of the broken signposts that he says, whenever people cry out for justice, it is an evidence, or at least it's an echo of a God behind all things, right? Like when somebody's lunch money gets stolen by the same bully every day, we want to do something about it. And N.T. Wright and other apologists say, well, where does that come from? That comes from a God who's just, and we can talk about in the Bible how God has always been a God of justice. So I think a person of faith can say, wanting to make sense of something that's so odd and weird in the Olympics this year. there had to be a reason that this something wasn't caught. So we got to make sure we go back and double check our redundancies and make sure like the only athletes who are truly serious and gifted enough should be in the Olympics in any event. So I think the first thing that I would say is it's been interesting to watch this call for justice. So that's maybe on one, if we had like a stove of topics to talk about in this, that'd be on one of the burners. I don't know if it's front burner, back burner, but there's like this kind of justice oriented thing. I started kind of plumbing into Raygun's story a little bit.
Okay.
Her husband has been a breakdancer, so this is stuff that she shares in her relationship with her spouse, which is cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And I just love how she's a professor of this stuff, Like she could probably, better than any other breakdancer, talk about the history of breakdancing, why it has endured, why it should even qualify as an Olympic sport. She could give the rationale. Like she'd get the chalkboard out, like the dry erase board, and like do this long lecture on it, which is kind of cool. And in one of her interviews, she said something that was kind of cool. It kind of stood out from all the rest of the stuff. She said in her bag always is her laptop because she's a researcher, and her knee pads because she's a practitioner. Now she may not have been the most skilled practitioner on the world stage during this Olympics season, but she's at least given it a try. She's way better than the average breakdancer. And so I thought that was kind of cool that she was like the life of the mind and the life of practice. And when we think about the Christian faith, we're called, of course, to think about our faith, have a reason for all the things that we believe. We're also called to put it into practice. You go to the very end of the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus says we got to hear the words, we also got to put them into practice. James says in James 2, faith without action is dead. Like it doesn't qualify as like the saving faith that's required of the Christian. And so many things that we can talk about here. And the countless memes are just hilarious.
Yes.
I mean, I heard even Adele stopped her show in Munich. And started like talking about it. It's like, this is the neatest thing. And so I think one more thing I could say, it kind of speaks to the corporate witness of the church. We are ordinary people like people outside the church. We have the same amount of time as people who aren't in the church. We have an agenda. We do have hopes for the world that are probably different than those outside the church. And to those outside the church, the things that we are committed to, like from the very beginning, we have been distinct. We have cherished things that the world has despised, and vice versa. And we have despised things that the world has cherished. So I was thinking about Flannery O'Connor. She says, "You shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you odd." And I think this is kind of maybe a modern day example of what oddness might look like. And it might be a productive oddness in the long run. So anyways, those are a few things that come to my mind.
Oh, I like that. Those are all, very good. I love the knee pads and the laptop thing. I think that's great and a good parallel for us to think about. And another thing that I was thinking as I was watching is breaking is, it's a relatively new sport. Obviously, this is the first time it's in the Olympics.
It's the last time, right? It's not going to get picked up in LA in 2028. So,
and I was just aware of my ignorance as I was watching it. Like, I watched a couple rounds of it, and I could not have guessed who was going to win each match. Like, I don't know anything about the sport. I don't really know what the moves are called. And so I think that was another interesting thing for me was there's a lot of sports in the Olympics that are very clear who the winner is, right? If you're racing, there's a winner.
Right.
If you're playing basketball, there's a winner. Like there's, I don't know percentage-wise, a lot of them, there's a very clear winner. But then we have these things like gymnastics or breaking where it's honestly pretty subjective. Maybe if there are different judges, maybe different people would have won. I'm not saying Raygun would have necessarily won, but it is a very subjective sport. And I think that was one of the things I was trying to think of, like what could all of us learn from this? There's some things that are very objective and some things that are super subjective, and we don't get to, sometimes people are going to make decisions that are subjective that we don't agree with, and we have to roll with it. Sometimes it's very clear, and a lot of times it's subjective. So do you have any thoughts on that? What can those of us in non-Olympic village world, as we're thinking about just decisions that may or may not be fair?
So I in a weird way, I'll do like a roundabout way, but I was reflecting on, so the New Testament letter text in the lectionary this week is Ephesians 5:15 to the end of until the end of that section, I think 20 or 21. And there's an interesting like paradox or tension that's highlighted there. On the one hand, it says like, make the most of your time. But it also talks about, like not being caught up and stained by the, polluted by the world and stuff like that. And so when I think about that text, I did a short reflection on it this week. And on the one hand, like Christians, we're supposed to be distinct, but we're also supposed to go in the world at the same time. And so we need to, venture outside the fence and be in the world so we can bear witness and also observe what's going on out there, what God might be up to outside of our, usual purview of observation in our life. But we've got to be careful. I mean, at the same time, be careful that you're not kind of, pulled into influences that could damage your faith in the long run.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think it's the same way, like, Christians, we're not the only people in the world, shocker. But we do have an agenda. We do have hopes and dreams that are distinct from the rest of the world around us. And so we're going to be in moments as we sort all that out where things are going to be decided that we don't particularly care for.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and we talked about this, I think, last week or the last time, a couple times on trending, is we need to evaluate what really needs to take all of our emotional and argumentative energy.
Yeah.
Because everything can't. Because we will be exhausted, and we'd probably be tuned out if we, call to arms on all things, metaphorically.
Yep.
So I go back once again to the thing that Pastor Andy gave us in a lead staff meeting. When stuff is being discussed and you're trying to work on it together, but you may not necessarily agree with the direction of the team or the organization.
Yeah.
Once again, 3 levels. There's the respect, there's the affirm, and there's the subscribing to something.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to, is the very basic thing, could I respect the decision of those who are making the decision that I don't have the power to contribute to the decision?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I affirm it? Yeah. I see where they're going. I can't embrace it fully, but I'm like kind of mid the way there. And then the subscribing thing is, yes, I embrace it totally. And so, yes, all things are pretty subjective when it gets down to it.
Yeah.
Only a few things can truly be described as objective. And so we're always going to have to be sifting through like in a triage clinic.
Yeah.
Can I respect this without having to give a voice and opinion to it? Could I affirm it? And then can I subscribe to it, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with bringing a point of argumentation on most or all things. But the scripture does tell us, can we do it with gentleness and respect?
Yeah.
Can we have a cool head prevail in the midst of it? Can we do it without name calling or completely dehumanizing the person that we are opposed to?
Yeah.
Can we hopefully do it and hopefully over our life? Can we grow in the skills of disagreeing with somebody but still retaining a relationship?
Yeah.
Right. And I hope that's certainly something that I can say about my life by the end.
Yeah.
And hopefully Christians would subscribe to the same type of endeavor because there's just no setting in which we're going to agree totally with somebody. But can we learn to still dwell together even though we may not fully embrace one another's perspective?
Yeah. That's good. Yep, that theme will continue to come up here and in the world.
That's right.
Okay, we'll try to keep this quick. I have one more kind of question to wrap it up here. So it's going to be interesting. Raygun hasn't really given a ton of interviews since this. There's been a couple that I was able to read, and I think you've read a couple of them. But she could be everywhere right now if she wanted to, but she's not for whatever reason. And I'm kind of getting the impression that she's maybe her feelings are hurt a little bit. Like she's maybe like, the world's kind of laughing at me right now, and that'd be hard for anybody, right?
Yep.
And at the same time, it seems like she's also pretty good-natured, though. Like there was one interview where her quote was something like, I knew that I couldn't compete with some of the moves that some of these girls had. Like she knew that her competitors were outstanding, top of the world. So her quote was something like, I just bring my creativity the best of my ability, or something like that. Yeah. So she was like, I know I can't compete with this. I'm just going to be creative. And even watching her, you can tell she's having fun. She's kind of got this joyful, buoyant spirit about her. Again, from a couple clips I've seen. So is there anything about that, dealing with criticism, doing your thing with joy, even if you're not going to be the best at something? I feel like that's something we can maybe at least pull from her story too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when and in any scenario, like if it's us personally or us corporately as a church, when we feel like we are behind people who are doing the same thing that we're doing, we have an interesting decision to make. Should we phase out the things that we uniquely do in order to, and try to like mimic what they're doing to try to keep up? Or is there a wager to make a gambit to say, no, I'd really like to retain some creativity, some unique personality in this thing? And I just go back to David Brooks when he says there's a resume that we're writing and there's a eulogy that we're writing. And one of the things about the eulogy is like at a memorial service, at a funeral, you're the only person who has passed away for that moment, and we're reflecting on your life. And not that it benefits us because we've already passed and gone, but I think one of the neat things for our family is if we can have our own project that we're working on, so they can tell our unique story and not just talk about how we blended with the rest of the life around us. And so I think as Christians, we should not be afraid to be unique. I think as churches, we should not be afraid to be unique. Something that there was a book out there called Tribes, talking about this, how there's a collapse of the homogeneity in the world around us. How really there are unique pockets of people who are looking to belong and to be even be led by unique leaders. And so I would say let's not throw away the uniqueness of who we are. Embrace it. Right? We don't have to get in the ceaseless comparison game of how our uniqueness is better than another person's uniqueness. But I do think that the spice of life is some originality. And so we should do our best to try to attain some sort of originality in the things that we're doing and the projects that we're working on, so that the zest of life can be revealed to all who are watching us. No,
that's good. We've been talking in recent weeks about the Mount Rushmore of trending, right? So far, I think the shoe-ins are Jimmy Fallon and G.K. Chesterton. David Brooks is maybe on his way up to making, I don't know. But I feel like Raygun maybe, I don't know, maybe Raygun, we'll keep an eye on her. Maybe she'll be one of the next ones to be on her,
That's
on
right.
our list.
And not just for quota's sake, but because all people are created in the image of God. We need to have some ladies up on the Mount Rushmore, right? So maybe Raygun is making her way up. That'd be awesome.
She's great. One of the patron saint of trending.
Man.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again so much for you guys watching or listening. Joe, you're preaching on Sunday. Looking forward to that. So
we're still in our Philippians series, and we're actually going to have a little word from Paul and Sarah August. Our French missionaries, going to help us because I believe that what they do helps teach the topic of the day.
Oh, cool.
So I can't wait to see them included. So
it's
going to be a good time.
Cool. Awesome. We'd love to have you join us. We'll be back here next week. So have a great week. See you next time.